Hey, what's up guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. This video is going to be a little bit different today as we do a lot of these tech therapy videos, and this one is going to be in a public place, not in my car, not in my house. I'm actually in a bookstore, as you can tell by Elsa over my shoulder. My kid doing her homework, as I am doing what many dads do, is one of my kids is at basketball, the other one is doing her homework. And I'm in the little tiny chairs, these little baby chairs. I'm actually a very big guy, so it's fun to do this video here. The reason why I want to do this video is books are going to be in the conversation. Is that typically around this time of year, with tech channels and all over YouTube, you're going to see a lot of Black Friday videos. And I'm not really going to do one simply because everyone is doing them on what TVs to purchase, what graphics cards, games, things like that. What I want to focus a little bit on in this video is the stress of the holidays and how it can fatigue us in many ways, as well as the tech that we, or the content that we watch or view can also add to that stress. Now, I've been joking lately about Call of Duty Modern Warfare, as I find the game to be very frustrating. Now, this isn't about Call of Duty. The video is not about Call of Duty. The video is about the kind of content that we consume, we watch, that can also add to our frustration, and how we spend our time, and the media that we watch and view, and whether that's on your iPads or your tablets or your phones. And that could be the reason I want to do this video is my own experience and kind of live what I've done as an exercise to make myself feel more relaxed. Now, most self-help books and things on YouTube or whatever will tell you that the best way to feel better is to unplug completely from social media, unplug from your phone, from all your devices. And while that is definitely noble and something that we should all do from time to time, it's not always feasible. Our phones are basically computers. We use them for everything. And it's also our information, whether it's news, media, whatever. It's very hard to stay away from them completely. So what you'll also hear is to pick up a good book. And that's kind of what I'm going to do this video about. Especially as the holidays are around, we find ourselves more stressed. And for those of you that are making Black Friday purchases, it's an interesting dynamic to want to purchase something on Black Friday when spending more money during the holidays is right around the corner, especially for those of us that have children. You're trying to, yes, awesome. You're trying to make a purchase, save money, while you're also gonna have to spend more money on family and gifts and things of that nature. I'm also wearing my Transformers sweatshirt. So what I'm talking about with the books and this exercise, I think you should all try. It's not always feasible to read or to take time to read. I know it sounds ridiculous, but when I talk about reading, I don't mean about reading self-help books, or it seems like every time someone on YouTube is talking about a book, it's buy my book, or subscribe to this, or buy that, or Patreon, or whatever. I'm not meaning that. And I think even starting a new book can be an arduous process. Who really has the time to get into a new book? So what I've done, probably 3 or 4 books in, finishing up my 4th, is kind of reverse engineering films. Now, bear with me. Something I want you guys to try that I found relaxing is that you can read and focus without necessarily having to consume new information. So what I would do, and what I recommend is, I'll give you a few examples, is to think of your favorite film and find the book adaptation or the book that it's based on and read that book. The reason I recommend doing it that way is that you're familiar with the subject matter. You're also able to stay in that same universe and then in many ways flesh out an existing universe that is more broad by the story. Now, a lot of times what people will do is they'll read books first and then see the film and say, well, I don't know, the film didn't really stand up on its own. It left a lot of what the book had to offer, namely things like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, a lot of these classic books, or Game of Thrones not being being closely to the first couple seasons, and then deviating and running out of content. The idea behind this is to be able to still read, still be relaxed, but not have to be so committed and afraid to lose your place. So my example of what I'm finishing up right now, or have finished up recently, is The Exorcist. Now, when I brought up Call of Duty and I bring up the content, yes, a lot of it is negative content, shooting and violence and things of that nature. So I'm not saying go read. We are a tech channel. We do focus a lot on sci-fi, horror. I'm not a big comedy guy, but a lot of things like that. I'm not saying find something that's positive, which you should do, but I'm saying find something that you can be interested in without losing focus on everything else. So my example was The Exorcist. The Exorcist is one of the best movies ever made, perhaps the best horror movie ever made. It is also a phenomenal, phenomenal book. A book like The Exorcist actually is one of the best film adaptations of a book that I've ever read. It broadens the film. There are some characters, but it broadens the dialogue, obviously. But each character has a greater purpose, namely Father Karras, namely Kinderman, the police officer, Father Marin, Reagan, Chris, the mom, Sharon, the caretaker, the two helpers in the house. It really does add to that universe. Most importantly, you're able to read it, kind of fall into the book, and you can half pay attention. Now, for me, reading is something that I do every single day, but it's amazing how we read now. We read quickly through articles, we get to the end, we find the text specs we want, we just kind of glance through things. And I found I had to teach myself how to read again in terms of really being present, especially if reading off of a phone or whatever. And I don't encourage to not read on a tablet. Sometimes it's whatever is easier for us. It's not always feasible to walk around carrying a large book. But something like The Shining, I was able to feel at home reading it. Also, it really broadened that story. So I was more immersed, able to read yesterday, sitting on the couch, fire going, all media off, and reading a book that I already knew the story loosely to, and it really enhanced that story for me, and it kind of put me at ease. When you're playing video games or movies on these huge TVs or projectors, I find that at times something like the Call of Duty, even though there's nothing wrong with the game's not broken, it's just I found that with my fatigue and other things in my life, that was drawing from me and frustrating me beyond the game. And I need to take a little step back from it in general, even watching the films I watch. Now, recommending you read The Exorcist isn't exactly going to make you feel better, but it's infinitely more interesting than the film, as my daughter is throwing that at me. It's interesting. It just enhances the film, but it's familiar enough to me where I can half be involved. I can half be present. Yes, obviously, should you read a book where you're 100% present and more focused? Should you read a self-help book or any of those things? Sure. What I'm trying to say is, for someone who hasn't read in a long time a novel, whether you're a young person who's in school and you want to read another book, reading a book based on a film you've already seen, at least in my opinion, the Harry Potter is a good example. If you enjoy the Harry Potter films but haven't read the books, I know people are going to get crazy. Reading those books enhances those films. They're much better, much more detailed. And in most film adaptations, it's like a quick, they combine characters. Sometimes the books are too long, but the Harry Potter books really do add other characters. It enhances the story. The best part is letting your brain do the work, yet you're still relaxed, and the visual stress isn't there. It's amazing the visual looking. Video games don't make me relaxed. And I found myself, now they also say don't read before bed. I'm just saying if you have a few minutes a day, the stress is getting to you, you're busy, find your favorite film and read the book adaptation of that film. Now you may find my examples off the top of my head are The Exorcist, Amityville Horror. These are all very positive books. None of them are feel-good books. Amityville Horror, The Godfather, one of the best. As far as you liking that universe, each of those characters, Clemenza, a lot of those characters that are in those films have a much broader characterization in those books, whether it's their dialogue, their backstories, so it fleshes them out. Things like Lord of the Rings, sometimes there's so many characters that it takes you away from the story, and that might require a little bit more work on your part. Some of them are very long-winded. These books for me were easy because they were so with the film that I find myself engaged more. There's other ones too that I found in the store. It's amazing with physical media, even physical books. They didn't have any books in this huge store. The Shining, excellent. Now, The Shining is a different take because if you like the Stanley Kubrick adaptation of The Shining, I think you'll only like the book more. It's completely different. As a father, it shows Jack Torrance as being a more endearing dad and more of a loving father. And it's more about, we can do a whole video on that alone, but it's more about the Overlook wanting Daniel, or wanting their son, Danny, and it just really enhances it. But by being familiar with I got you, honey, stop. By being familiar with the film, this is easy to segue into, and it only draws you in. It's almost effortless to read, is what I guess the whole point of this is what's effortless for you. My other favorite is Salem's Lot. If you like Salem's Lot, the film, the book is infinitely better. It focuses on the Marzan house and the haunting and the town, and the main vampire is not at all as they're portrayed, and it's actually, they're scary, but it's really more about, like I said, getting your mind to work, to read is relaxing in general. It just relaxes you, but not having to work so hard at it and being able to read the media that you love. Now, even some of the Star Wars stuff, if you're into Star Wars, or some of your favorite graphic novels, even whether they're in canon or not. Now, something like Blade Runner, the book, the Electric Sheep book that's based on that, is so far away from Blade Runner that you might not find that interesting. The reason why I recommend these is that they're very loose, or they only enhance the story, meaning you can pick them up and put them down and not feel like you have to work hard at reading. A lot of people in the comments, we talk about books and reading. Most of us come from comic books and graphic novels and a lot of these books. But if you find yourself stressed and you find yourself, the media that we consume is only making you more anxious or making you more fatigued, and that's why I drew the Call of Duty. I love those games. I love multiplayer games, but I found that they were taking from me and making me more, not more aggressive, but just, I was pissed playing it. And that's not what I want to do with my free time. I clearly don't have any free time. I'm at a bookstore filming a video with my kid who's doing her homework. That time to me is valuable. I want to enjoy the content. But I felt that I hadn't been reading anything in a long time. Now, reading this stuff isn't exactly the most cheery, but I also read Firestarter, which I love that film. The book is infinitely better. One instance where it's not better is my favorite film of all time, which is Jaws, is my favorite film of all time. The book is very good. It does change the story quite a bit in a way that you can't unsee. It does give you a little bit of the shark's thought process, or at least primal thought process, which is interesting, but that's not one I can recommend because the film is infinitely better in my opinion, and some of the liberties or some of the parts of the book totally change your perception of the film and make some of the characters less endearing. So I'll just leave it there. But Salem's Lot, if you like Stephen King, it is gigantic. Hard recommend it. But Pet Sematary, a lot of these, if you like the films, the books are just a way to relax. And I think I can encourage everyone in this community. We're so focused on media and HDR and bright colors and loud sounds. It really is amazing to have complete silence from me, from YouTube, from the constant feed, and sit and read a book. But read a book that is based on sci-fi or horror or whatever, drama. You know, just reading these books, it keeps us close to the things that we love, and For many of these, it actually enhances the stories that we're in love with. And I like that. I like going back in and finding that The Exorcist, for instance, it's so much deeper. Yes, it's not a positive one, I understand, but I don't come away from it feeling fatigued. The stuff that we're watching, in some ways, yes, violence, things like that will tax you. But what I find is the constant media. It's me watching, whether it's tech stuff or movie stuff, and then I'm a big UFC and boxing fan, and Twitter wars back and forth, throw in some politics, throw in some school shootings. It's just a feed. And I find that when I add things that take from me, I need to give it a break. To give it a break completely isn't always realistic, which is why I'm encouraging you guys to try this exercise. Find your favorite film, find the book adaptation, even if you don't buy the physical book, buy it on your Kindle or whatever, and just read it. And don't feel so committed. If you don't finish it, don't finish it. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. If you sit with it, make things quiet for just a little while. Even if you're in your car, pull over, take the key out, read the book. You might find yourself relaxed. And that's what I found for me. I found in this busy time during the holidays where stress is at its highest, sometimes the media we consume can consume us. And nothing is better than a good book or a good story. And it keeps us close to home because it's the things that we already love. And what I like about it is, in the films that I mentioned, it doesn't detract for them. It doesn't make them less. If anything, it enhances that universe. In The Shining, there's so much more about those characters. Perfect example is Burke Dennings. If you remember the director who dies, Reagan pushes him out the window. In the book, it really goes into detail of why he was there. It goes into detail that one of the what's up, my man? Hold on one second. Sorry, when you film in your community, you're gonna see people you know. As I was saying, the Burke Dennings character is so much more fleshed out that even one of the demons or personalities, where if you remember in the film, when she turns her head around and she says, "You know what your daughter did?" and says, "Your effing or C daughter," that's the voice of Burke Dennings. And that throughout the book, she manifests that voice several times, using his exact voice, and even tells people that she's the one that killed him. That's not in the film. So to have that kind of stuff in the book only enhances the film. When you watch the film, it makes the film that much better, makes the dialogue that much better, because it fleshes out the characters that are already in it. It brings up that the German house people that they have in the house, they have a daughter who has a drug addiction, and the Reagan Pazuzu, which is named in the book, not in the film, talks about that daughter, speaks German, but doesn't know the language, actually reads all of their minds. So little things like that enhance that for me and actually relaxed me. So able to escape reality, be immersed in the written word, but also be close to home to the things that we already love in film and in media. This is Brian from Whisper Status. I know this is a weird video. Grab a book of your favorite film and lose yourself for a little while and disconnect from me and any kind of media for a little while and see if it helps ease some of your stresses during the holidays. We'll do more videos on these books and the differences between films, but I think you'll find them interesting, and they'll also enhance the films that you already love. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is handling the stress of the holidays, and I will talk to you soon. In the comments, please let me know what great books you recommend, and hopefully people in the community can see what you guys are reading or have read or what you recommend. Graphic novels as well. All right, guys, I hope everyone is doing well. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.